Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
Now back here, increasingly strong signals seem to be emerging tonight that Theresa May has yet again returned from her holidays with a new policy initiative. It's thought she wants to ditch the government's decision to restrict public sector pay rises to a maximum of 1%. Downing Street resolutely refused to comment on the speculation, but it did reiterate that the Prime Minister recognises the sacrifice that public sector workers have been making. The suggestion appears to be that lifting the cap could be done in stages to try and soften the impact on the public finances.
Public sector workers have been feeling the squeeze. 4 years of a 1% pay cap, with prices growing faster than that for the last 12 months or so. Visiting a new rail project in Manchester today, the Chancellor wasn't giving a lot away, but certainly didn't rule out giving public sector employees a bit more cash.
We always seek to strike the right balance between fairness to our public sector workers delivering our vital public services and fairness to the taxpayers who pay for those services and who use them. We want to protect public sector jobs. We want to make sure that our public services are sustainable and affordable.
In 2011, there was a freeze on public sector pay that was followed in 2013 by a 1% pay cap. It covers NHS staff, police officers, teachers, prison guards and all other civil servants. A pay rise of about the rate of inflation, currently 2.6%, would be worth £820 to the average nurse or £600 to a newly qualified teacher. But giving all public sector workers the same 2.6% rise would cost the public purse around £4 billion.
There you go.
So it may be areas like nursing, where Nadia Tavernier-Gustav is a manager, which get the first rises. She says low pay is making it harder to keep her nurses.
Don't get me wrong, we all go into nursing because we love patient care. We like to look after people, we like to make them better, but we also need to be paid. And we need to be paid a fair amount for what we do and the hours that we work. So for some people to come to work and not be able to get that, they just don't want to come to work anymore.
Striking McDonald's workers demonstrated outside Parliament today. Private sector pay rises have not been supersized lately either. So public sector workers are not far behind.
Up till now, they've been doing no worse than workers in the private sector. But if you kept up with this 1% cap, then they probably would fall further and further behind the private sector. So if you're going to change policy, now is probably not a bad time to do it.
Today, the Prime Minister's spokeswoman recognised the sacrifice of public sector workers. Tomorrow, Nicola Sturgeon is expected to lead the way and lift the pay cap in Scotland. Carl Dinnan, News at 10.
Whether or not the cap is lifted, it is sometimes hard to recall where we are on the defining argument of David Cameron's time in power, the state of our public finances. Austerity and the urgent need to balance the nation's books were, you will recall, of course, the watchwords of the Cameron administration. So where on earth have we actually got to? Well, last year, the budget deficit, that's the difference between what the government raises and what it spends, was £52 billion. Despite being a 10-year low, that was still somewhat short of George Osborne's promise as Chancellor in 2010 to balance the books within 5 years. The current government, by contrast, has made no specific promises, only that the deficit would be eliminated by the middle of the next decade, which is a bit of an adjustment, to say the least. And Carl is here to talk about it. So, Carl, potentially a lot of money involved in doing this. Where's it going to come from?
Well, as you've just explained, the Chancellor isn't as constrained by what are known as his fiscal rules as his predecessor was. But he's not going to start borrowing to pay the wages. He will only borrow to invest. So that leaves finding some savings or perhaps raising some taxes. VAT is the only tax that is protected by the Conservative manifesto, or what's left of the Conservative manifesto.
Yes, not a lot, anyway, yeah.
Not a lot indeed. So perhaps national insurance might be vulnerable, although he's already indicated he might try and use that to pay for social care. So those are the sorts of things we're looking at. Or here's a thought that someone mentioned to me today. Maybe he won't pay for it at all. Maybe he will just go to the public sector employers and say, you can raise wages, but you've got to find it from your existing budgets.
Not particularly popular, I guess, with them at least. Let's move on to Brexit. I gather there's a development tonight on that, a real one this time.
Yeah. Quite a strange announcement came out of Brussels today. The EU Parliament's negotiator Guy Verhofstadt suddenly announced that Theresa May would be making a major intervention on the 21st of September, and the next round of negotiations would have to be pushed back. Now, Downing Street is the usual place for announcements about prime ministerial speeches, and they said that actually she would be making a major speech, although the date has not yet been set. Now, this is an important speech because we are reaching a crunch point in Brexit negotiations. There are only 2 more rounds of negotiations before the EU leaders meet in Council in October, mid-October, to decide whether negotiations can go on to the trade talks, which Britain is desperate to get to. Now, there is a logjam at the minute. The negotiations haven't got far enough to go on to that next stage. People will be looking to the Prime Minister to break that logjam.
OK, let's see. Carl, thank you very much indeed.
If you don't mind, more stories. Oxford head in attack on pay rise of ministers. And this is also on the inside pages of the Times as well.
This is the Vice-Chancellor of Oxford University, Louise Richardson.
Professor.
Good for her. £350,000 a year, complaining that politicians, the Tory politicians, are attacking the pay of vice-chancellors. As you say, look, we're not paid like footballers. The point is, she's paid, and many of them are paid more than her, I accept. She's paid more than twice the Prime Minister.
Yeah.
She's paid a large multiple of lecturers who are having their pay squeezed. This is why there is an issue.
And
the college union,
of £9,000 a year plus interest.
and the college union, the lecturers union, the UCU is complaining about this.
They are getting fat cat salaries.
She should stop
But
her
they have
whinging.
to be the best in the world at what they do, surely.
Yeah, it's a fantastic institution. It's a fantastic institution with her on £350,000. So I hope you're not going to suggest she has to earn American levels.
Well, we're reading their heads of 40 American universities
Well,
earned
why
more than
doesn't
$1
she go over
million
there, then?
last year,
Well,
and more than $2 million
People at the top always do this.
Yeah, she can go over there. I'm sure they'll be very welcome to her. And the 350,000, then there'll be all the perks.
She's incredibly well paid.
She is.
If she wants to explain why she gets well paid, so be it.
And meanwhile,
but stop mourning.
And meanwhile, where did this story come from? Is it just a rumour? Is it true?
No, this has definitely been around for a few days now, and it's in all the papers tomorrow.
There's a piece of the Sun today. It was around, if you remember, there's a big row before the summer with Philip Hammond, the Chancellor, holding it back. But if the cap is lifted, remember, public service workers had their pay frozen for 2 years, then they've been limited to 1% when inflation has been much higher. Their living standards have fallen quite a lot of recruitment problems. It's only, if it's lifted, it's going to be lifted very partially.
She's going to do it what they think that they'll do for nurses in London, where there's real recruitment issues, maybe some police officers where there's recruitment issues, and it's very
for new teachers.
New teachers, and it's very easy for Maguire to say we've got to lift it. It's £4 billion a year. What about the private sector where pay is squeezed and squeezed and squeezed? And you don't hear the trade unions marching down the Mall and Whitehall. Very rarely. They always go on about the public sector.
And you know when they do?
And they do have very generous pensions compared to the private sector.
There's no point paying professions so low that you can't actually get people to join that profession.
Yeah, well, that's why they are reflecting.
But slowly.
Exactly.
You would admit slowly.
Exactly.
Well, because it's not austerity. It's called living within our means, and £4 billion is a lot of money.
Come on. They didn't create the financial crisis. They paid a price. It was an ideological decision, austerity, by your mates in the Tory party to push it through. And they made a pay. Yes, it is. When their living standards have gone down, and wages across the economy will not recover their 2008 value until 2021. Your lot have been utterly useless. One of the reasons you've been useless, and you've crushed living standards. You've been taking so much money out of the economy.
I know Kevin's even more verbose than normal, but we do have to say when Kevin goes on about living standards, he never mentions the fact we have got record numbers of people in employment, and it's the lowest unemployment figure since 1974. The left never wants to talk about that. Ever,
so many jobs, when so many of those jobs created are low paid, it's people like you who would never do those jobs.
Sorry, Maguire, it's a fantastic record.
We've got lots to discuss after the break.